Senator Susan Collins visited the Bangor Y today to discuss her advancement of $5 million as Vice Chair of Senate Appropriations Committee for a new health center. Grace Bradley talked to the senator about the importance and ambiguity of securing this funding.
Senator Susan Collins stopped by the Bangor Region YMCA after advancing $5 million in congressionally directed spending for their proposed 30,000 square foot facility.
From A to Z, we're expanding everything from our babies all the way through to our older adults. We've done a lot of research and community needs assessment that shows people can't get back into the workforce because they don't have affordable childcare.
If secured, the funding will go towards the Y proposed comprehensive health center. The larger, revamped building will provide even more services for the community, including public health programs and infant, early education, and after-school care.
We'll have a full court gymnasium, we'll have a running track, things that we don't currently have. So it will be very much life-changing.
Senator Collins toured the Y and spoke with those of all ages to hear how the Y has positively impacted them.
What I've found is when you just talk numbers to your colleagues, it doesn't have near the impact as when you talk about meeting young children who are learning new skills and having a lot of fun and are in a safe environment. So that their parents can be working. Or you talk to a group of older adults, as we just did, and learn the difference it has made in improving their strength. In the long run, not only is that wonderful for those individuals and their families, but it saves money. We're emphasizing prevention.
Celebrating the $5 million is on hold as a possible government shutdown looms on the horizon. If lawmakers cannot find consensus between the Republican-led House and the Democratic-controlled Senate, the advancement will be halted and the Y will not receive the support.
I'm doing everything I can personally to prevent a government shutdown. To me, that represents the ultimate failure to govern.
Grace Bradley, WABI TV5 News.